Hi, I'm Betsy Barbieux, and this is CAM Matters. Come join us today as we talk about some questions and answers. Many of you write to me or call me, and we're going to review some of those today, as well as a last push for the yearly educational summit that will be coming up August 10th and 11th in Leesburg, Florida. You still have time to register, and I hope you'll come join us today and in August.
Welcome to CAM Matters, Condos, Co-ops, HOAs, and beyond. Betsy Barbieux is an informational leader in Florida on community association living, rights, and obligations. She is an expert on the rights and obligations of owners as well as the association. If you live or are planning to live in the state of Florida, there's a good chance you'll be part of a community association. And by the end of this show, you'll know a little bit more about community associations and why they matter.
Welcome to this episode of CAM Matters. I'm Suzanne Lynn with Betsy Barbieux, and you've got questions. Today, Betsy has answers. Well, Betsy has answers all the time, but this is a question and answer episode.
Yeah. I'll make it up.
Yeah. You are the go-to in Florida for questions about HOA community living. And Betsy, first of all, how are you today before we jump right in?
I'm doing well.
I know that you're gearing up for the
gearing
conference.
up for the summit,
Yep.
for the yearly educational summit. I'm gearing up for that. We've got, I think, 3 weeks left.
Yes.
And the website crashed. And I'd like to say it crashed because we had so many registrations coming in.
You can say it.
I'll say that, but it's not true. But I don't know what happened. It just crashed. And it has taken almost 2 weeks to get it up and running. So if you've been trying to register for the yearly educational summit, you should be able to do it now. So please hurry up and get your registrations in so Betsy, I can be prepared for you.
We have a lot to talk about. We're going to do that in the second half of this episode.
Okay.
It's probably my favorite thing that you do all year is the Yes Conference. And unless you've experienced it, unless you've actually been out there, you can't understand the education and the fun that happens at the same time. But we're going to start with questions first.
Okay.
We're going to do the work before the play this time.
Okay.
So Betsy, you often get questions from people all around the state, and actually people call you from the country, but
all over.
You are all over. You got a question from Ainsley. It said, and imagine this, there's some turmoil with the homeowners. Her question says, I hate to bother you, but the board and I are currently dealing with a difficult homeowner. Last month, they requested official records since 2021, which we furnished. Apparently, we did not provide them with all the information they wanted and are now requesting all official records for the past 5 years. I know we have to provide them 10 days, but my question is, who pays for this? Yeah. We'll start with that.
Check with your attorney first, but I think that this is an unreasonable request and that total compliance is probably not necessary, but check with your attorney first. This is what happens to managers with an owner who has some bone to pick. Now, granted, there are some boards that do bad on purpose, and there are some managers that do bad on purpose, and the records do need to be examined, but sometimes it's just a harassment. And the board has the ability by statute to create policies for how and when and how many records owners can request at a time. There's even a suggested statutory form on the Division of Condominiums website that I would strongly urge boards to take advantage of. The other thing about the records request that seems misunderstood, and I think it's misunderstood because we've tried to be nice and accommodating, and it then is misused and abused. But the statute, the way I understand it, is that all you have to do is provide access to the owner to the records.
Oh, you don't have to provide the records, just access.
No, you don't have to provide the records. No. You provide access to the records. So my understanding is that within 10 business days of a written request, and boards need to define what is written. What does the word written mean? Does it mean email written or does it mean paper and pencil written? So that boards need to define that so they don't appear to be arbitrary in complying with the request. Well, she emailed hers, but you made them send theirs by paper.
Sure.
So
Sure.
they need to define written. And then you can limit an owner to X number of documents, and they need to be specific. You can't say all records for the last 5 years.
Right.
You can't say that because what
Completely unreasonable.
it
Yeah.
has to be reasonable, and you need to list specifically what you want to see, and then you are given a date, time, and place that has to be within 45 miles of the association property. You are given a date, time, and place that you may come to that place and see the records.
Mm.
And then you may make copies with your portable device at no charge,
Mm-hmm.
or the association can make copies for you and bill them for you and bill them for the employee's time.
It's important that you say that because Ainsley went on to say it cost $120
Yeah.
to get these, and it wasn't even billing for her time.
Yeah.
So
Right.
now this is starting to
Right.
get into homeowners. This is getting into, fiscal harassment now.
Yeah, it's yes, fiscal harassment would be a really good word for
Right.
that.
Right.
But I felt so sorry for her when she contacted me because she'd already spent hours
Mhm.
on her request here,
Mm.
and then it still wasn't enough.
Wasn't
And
enough.
I suggested to her that the board meet as quickly as possible and create a policy
Mhm.
and make sure that everyone knows what all the rules are.
Mm.
The statute goes on to say that we may, not must, will, or shall, but may provide the records electronically, but we're not required to. And, this is kind of where like the nasty part of me comes out. And, you know, I almost 99.9% of the time email records to an owner who wants them.
Mhm.
But I tell you what, there would be some. It's like,
Yeah.
you can come look at them.
Betsy, I don't
Now,
see it as being nasty. I see you helping build boundaries, and you're leading the way, teaching people how to not be pushed over.
the only thing with an owner coming to the office to view the records is then it still takes up my time, and I need someone else in the office at the same time with them.
Sure.
So, it's inconvenient for everybody, but owners need to know that anytime we email them anything, it's a
Yeah.
courtesy.
Mm, mm.
It's a courtesy.
Really good to know. That's good to know. Again, pushing back a little bit.
Mhm.
We're going to move on to Brenda's question.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I have to do the glasses. She said, I got a couple questions. Can a board vote to fund a pooled reserve when we have component reserves without an owner's vote? Let's start with that one, but it's a two-part question.
Okay. Her question was about pooling reserves from component reserves. And some of this is going to change after December 2024 with the new laws. Some of this will change.
Okay.
But at the moment, going from component straight line reserves to a pooled fund, the board, it's a two-part vote. The board votes to pool the reserves. So let's say you've got component funding for roofing, paving, painting, and you've got X amount of dollars in 3 different line items that are in your bank. The board votes to pool those 3 together.
Okay.
And instead of, had one accountant put it in layman's terms that I could understand, she said, it's as if the components have a bucket of money, like a bucket of money for paint, a bucket of money for roofing, a bucket of money for paving. And what the board can do is draw a line in the sand, which would be the date of the board meeting, and create one big bucket.
Mhm.
And from now on, the monthly contributions for those 3 little buckets, the
Can be
monthly
in one.
contribution will go into one big
Mhm.
bucket. But after month 1, you only have a little bit of money in the big bucket, the pooled bucket.
Right.
There is still money in the little buckets.
Okay.
you can either expend those monies as they're needed. So as
Mhm.
you're spending roof money or paint money or pavement money, you can expend those until those buckets are zeroed out.
Okay.
Or the board can ask the membership to take these 3 buckets and dump them into the pool. You move the monies into
Okay.
the pool.
Okay.
But that's a membership vote to do
Uh,
that. So
what's the
I
majority of communities do in that case?
I think that the communities, I kind of get the sense that communities are kind of half and half. Some have
Oh,
the straight line component funding, and some
mhm.
have the pooled funding.
Okay.
The pooled funding, you would calculate, I wouldn't do a pooled funding without having a reserve study and the reserve study specialist telling me how much then each month should go in the pool.
Right. I was going to say what percentage
Yeah,
would that?
it's not a percentage. It's a calculation of the remaining useful life of the item, the cost to replace the item when it's dead,
Okay.
expended, when it's
Right.
done, and then how much money do you already have allocated for that.
Okay.
And so that you subtract 1 and divide by the life. And then when you're doing a whole bunch of them together, not me. I'm gonna have the
Right.
reserve
Individual.
study specialist
Sure.
uh,
Sure.
do that computation
Betsy, I
of
think
what
you
the
kind of
funding should be.
you touched on this a little bit, but the second part of Brenda's question was what happens to the funds in the component reserves? Can they
Yeah,
be
in the
combined with that? Yeah.
component
Mhm.
reserves,
Right.
and those are the little buckets. The
Right.
money can either stay in those and be expended, which could take several years
Right.
to
Right.
expend those,
Okay.
or the owners can vote to dump them into the big pool.
Very good. All right. Well, we've got a third question from Ron
Okay,
asking, I hear there were changes to chapter 730. Can you give me the
7
highlights?
720.
Oh, you know what? That's what I get for not putting my
That's why
glasses
that's
on.
why you're supposed to put your
So
glasses
that's
on.
definitely a two, 720.
Yeah, it's 720.
Yeah.
This was House Bill 919
Mhm.
that went into effect just a month or so ago. The 720 303 clarifies, which I think most have done anyway, but it clarifies that in a homeowners association, the agenda must be posted with the notice. Some of that language had been ambiguous in the past, and they clarified it and said that the agenda with specifically identified agenda items has to be posted with the notice. I don't know why you wouldn't have been doing that anyway,
Right. Right.
but and then again to um, just kind of like my little soapbox thing, the agenda has to be specific enough that an owner can look at it and the agenda item and decide if they want to come to the meeting and listen to that discussion. So you can't have an unidentified other as a agenda item.
I got you.
You
Mhm. It's got to be specific. Right.
can't have something that says Q&A.
Right.
You
Right.
cannot have something that says town hall.
Mhm.
None of that is specifically identified. So
Okay.
none of those general kinds of words or phrases should be on your agenda. It needs to
Beautiful.
be specific. Discuss replacement of the pool heater.
Uh-huh.
Adjourn.
Okay.
You know,
Very good. Well, I think that
the
was a thorough answer for Ron.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, there were some more. They added to the HOA statute all of the nasty stuff that had been in the condominium and co-op statutes. And so they pretty much brought it up to speed, and they've added a few more things that have to do with kickbacks.
Oh,
They
oh,
put the word specifically kickback, and then officer, director, manager may not solicit, offer to accept, or accept anything or service of value or kickback for which consideration has not been provided for the benefit of his, um, for their benefit or benefit of his family. Also, a
I'm
director or
sorry.
officer,
That kind of seems like low-hanging fruit that,
you would
that's
think
kind of
it wouldn't
obvious.
have to be said.
Like that word kickback, just ooh,
Yeah,
that's a yeah.
you would think it would not have to be said. However, Also, any you'll like this one then too. Directors and officers charged by information or indictment must be removed from office if the issue is about forgery of a ballot or a ballot envelope, voting certificate, theft, or embezzlement. So, by golly, you can't stay on the board if
Wow.
you're
Boy,
arrested.
I don't know. Those are high standards there, you know.
Also, they've gone on to add some, and so this is how important documents are, the official records are. It says if they've been, if the director or officer has been charged with destruction of or refusal to allow inspection of official records in furtherance of a crime, it's called obstruction of justice. And if a criminal charge is pending against an officer or director, they may not be appointed or elected as an officer or director and may not have access to the official records.
Stay clean or you're off the board.
And
you can't see the records, right? Wow.
And there are
Okay.
also quite a few things about fraudulent voting practices. You can't intimidate somebody or you can't coerce anybody into a vote.
I'm really having a hard time keeping a straight face. It just seems okay. Well, good. I'm glad that they've got everything up to speed now and expectations are in check and we understand. Betsy, I have loved this segment, but we need to move on. Let's take a break here and move into the summit that's coming up next month in August. Very excited. We'll be right back to CAM Matters.
Are you ready for a new career? Do you have skills or interest in management, real estate, construction, maintenance, accounting, strategic planning, project management, budgets, human resource management, lawn and landscaping, pool services, or any other expertise needed to operate a community association? If you do, community association management could be for you. For more information, feel free to email Betsy at betsy@floridacamschools.com or visit the Florida Cam Schools website at www.floridacamschools.com. Florida Community Association Management continues to grow. Career opportunities abound.
Welcome back to CAM Matters. We had a question and answer segment for the first half of the show. The second half, we are moving into the Yes Conference. It's coming up shortly. Betsy, I loved just observing the last couple of years and seeing what the conference was about. But let's start for someone who said, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, the Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what I'm talking about. Yes is yearly educational summit.
Mm-hmm.
It is my annual continuing ed event. What I found through the years is that I have a lot of competition for continuing ed classes. There are a lot of providers, really good providers of continuing ed, and almost all of that is free. So you can get free continuing ed a lot of different places. So the way that I thought I could do something different, since I'm a school and I can't compete with free, that I would have an event and make sure that managers receive more value than doing a free class. So the event is a 2-day event. This year it will be in Leesburg, Florida at our beautiful gardens, Venetian Gardens area. It'll be at the Harris Room. That's a great big room. So I've got plenty of room for people. And those who came last year would remember that there was construction going on across the parking lot on the lakefront.
There was a restaurant closed, right?
Well, it was being opened. It was being built. It was
Okay.
being built. And the restaurant is finished. And so our networking social hour after day one will be across the parking lot at the Ski Beach restaurant. So we'll be meeting over there for appetizers and coffee, soda, beer, wine, whatever you want.
Betsy, I just have to jump in. You will not be hungry by that point because you're going to have so much food at the conference. You're going to have to pace yourself because it's not just a lot of food, it's delicious food. So by the time you
Oh,
get to the restaurant part, you're gonna be like, "Well, I should have paced. I should have,
shouldn't have had so much
right,
lunch and chocolate chip cookies.
right."
Oh, no. Miss Debbie is going to cook for us again, so there will be breakfast and lunch both days. And she usually has some kind of warm cookies out of the oven for
Yes,
mid-afternoon snacks. So
yes.
her crew will be cooking for us again this year.
Betsy, what
And
are
I
some of
have
the I was gonna ask you about some of the topics when you get to it, that's fine.
Okay, but I want to talk about our sponsors first
For
because
sure. Yes,
that's the reason that we can have the fabulous
yes.
venue that we have, and the food, and the happy hour afterwards, the social hour. But we have Vice Painting, that is our platinum event sponsor, and without them, we wouldn't have the fabulous room that we have. So
Mm,
I really appreciate Vice Painting for their contribution and support through all the years.
yeah.
We also have Valley Bank is our gold sponsor, and Peyton Boland, the attorneys in South Florida, is our silver sponsor. Then we have our breakfast sponsors are, I'll get it, Stone Building Solutions. I'll get their new name, Stone Building Solutions, and Centennial Bank. We have Encore Bank, that is the sponsor for lunch for both days. We have BAM of Volusia, that will be our social sponsor, and they're a fun group, so we'll have a good time. And then, of course, the Journal is the media sponsor.
Mm,
And I think I got everybody,
that's great.
but we appreciate the sponsors. It has allowed me to keep the price the same for the last 8 years.
Wow.
So the tuition. So
And it shows good, solid working relationships. They're happy with you, you're happy with them, and it's a big network that happens at the conference.
mhm.
People who have
It is
been there,
a lot of networking.
sponsors, and yeah, yeah.
And we have great facilitators this year. Every 2 years, I change facilitators because I have to change the course material. So I'm trying to it's like, well, I've got favorites over here, favorites over there, favorites over there. I've got favorites, but I have to change the course material every 2 years. So the facilitators change. This year, Catherine Hurst Miller will be the attorney who will be coming in day one to do our legal update. She is a condominium board certified attorney from Volusia County, and popular among a lot of people, a lot of communities in that area of the state. So she'll be talking to us, talking through some of these new laws and the glitch bill
Mm.
that was just passed. So we'll hear from her on those things. I will be the facilitator for the rest of the day, and we'll be talking about communication styles, how to deal with difficult people, um, stress management, time management, those kinds of things. And we might even have some time to talk more about hiring or making yourself more hireable. I'll
Mm.
create a new word there. The day two will be 4 facilitators, which has been the way I've set up the day two, is that there'll be 4 facilitators that will talk to 4 different groups of managers, and everybody will rotate around. So everybody will get to hear all 4 facilitators. One facilitator will be Mitch Drimmer, coming from South Florida, to talk to us about collections. We will have, I don't know if both of them are coming. I'm hoping they both will, but we will have Phil Massey and Nagar Sharifi from Assured Partners to talk about the insurance industry and things that are going on there. Matt Queasley from Reserve Advisors will be coming over from the Tampa area to talk about reserves. And then Joe Casalese will be talking to us about roofing. And those 4 topics seem to be, or will be, hot topics for the next year: the insurance, collections, reserves, and roofs.
Okay. Always on top of what the most important issues are. And well, as the show is beginning to wrap up, let's talk about the networking opportunity there. People come back not because they need the credits, but because they just love you and they love networking.
Well, it's so funny. I know managers are really, really busy, and I'll have some managers who will register, and I'll call them and I say, well, and this happened last year. They registered, and I said, well, now you already took the class the year before. This is the same class. You've already got all of your continuing ed credits. You don't need to come back. And they
Right.
said, oh, they're coming every year. It doesn't
That's
matter whether they've
funny.
had the same class or not, because the information exchange is so incredible.
Yeah.
Those who have been in my pre-licensing class know that I have to push, and get in a big volume of information in a short period of time. Continuing ed is different. I build in plenty of time for you all to talk with each other and to network.
Mhm.
You've got plenty of time to share best practices and experiences and exchange contact information. You have plenty of time for all of that. So I think that what they come for is the networking.
Yeah.
And generally the group of people who come this year will not be the same who come next year. But then sometimes there's overlap. So it's kind of a reunion for some of them. They come every year.
That's great. That just says so much about you. Betsy, I'm going to give you the final thought here before we end the show.
If you have questions, email me or call me. I answer questions on a daily basis. I don't mind at all. And be sure that the website is fixed. Those of you who knew that it had crashed, it is fixed as far as I can tell. And so please register. I'm counting on you to be there, and look forward to seeing all my friends and make new friends.
Yes. It's always a fun time. Well, this is another episode of CAM Matters. We would sure appreciate if you would review on whatever platform you're viewing this or listening. And of course, reach out to Betsy to be part of the YES conference that's coming up. We thank you for joining us. Please share this information with people in your community. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode of CAM Matters. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to CAM Matters. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. For more information, feel free to email Betsy at betsy@floridacamschools.com or visit the Florida Cam Schools website at www.floridacamschools.com. Information provided on this show is general in nature and does not constitute legal advice. Please contact a licensed attorney for your specific situation.